here. Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
See down the side. And but I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. Well, hello, beekeepers. I'm Ricky Rourke, and this is the Bee Connection. And we appreciate everybody on here tonight coming out and be with us, and coming to see our special speaker here tonight with us also. So, Spanky, how's them bees going off the mountain tonight?
They're doing good. They're building out comb. A bunch of propolis I had to scrape out of there, and some hive beetles I had to crush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got in my hives today. Well, I've got into two different people's hives today. One guy wanted, he left his supers on, and of course, one queen had moved up into the super. We smoked her down, put a queen excluder in, and it surprised me that up here in the mountains, even with our cold weather, there was a lot of drone brood in them supers, which surprised me greatly, and they were hatching out. So I told him, I says, we'll have to get in there in about a week and open that up and let them drones come out of there. So, but that surprised me. And then also did a split today on a small colony, and that queen was laying really good. So the bees are ready, and they were drawing new comb, nice, pretty white comb. And I flipped some of the frames over, and the nectar just poured out of them. So that really surprised me up here where we're at, because the maples are just now really going full bloom. So, what about you, Tom and Melissa?
Yeah, Ricky, do you have any feed on your bees right now, or just what's coming in?
I have feed on one colony right now because I'm doing a test on it.
Yeah.
If I was doing splits, I would definitely have sugar water and pollen patties on them, just because I want them to boost up really quick here early spring. But I don't have anything on it.
No. Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering. I didn't know if that was real nectar coming in from the plants, or if that was something that you had just fed to them. So
no, it's coming right off the maple trees, I guess, because I mean it was soaked. I couldn't believe I flipped the frame over to look, and they just dropped right on everything. It surprised me.
Yeah. Well, you know, if that nectar's coming out of there, they probably just put it in there within that day, or probably the day before, if it's coming out like that.
Yeah. It was
I always use that as my test too, to figure out how much it's dried down. Just pick up the frame and just give it a little shake like that. And if it comes out, I know that they just put it in there.
Yep.
I had done a second round of feeding, just 1 gallon per colony. I guess it was about
a week ago.
About a week ago, I guess it was, and put pollen patties on, and I'll do anywhere between a third and about a half a pound of the pollen patties, depending on the size colony. Trying not to make sure that I am allowing the hive beetles to ramp up production themselves, right? But they had sucked all that down, and most of them within that 7 days, I'd given them, again, just a small amount of pollen patties, and they had consumed that. So I think that when I had done that about a week and a half before, they didn't take it down quite as fast, even the larger colonies. So I think that they were riding in on some pollen themselves, a little bit heavier, but we had a few days that was kind of a cold snap. And I think that we're coming out of our maple trees pollinating and starting to move past that. So there might have been just a little bit of a lull here this last week. So I'm thinking that's why they were consuming those pollen patties even faster than they had the previous. So I'll probably put about another gallon of feed on each one of them, depending on the size colony. So I literally, just before I'd gotten in here to jump on with you all, mixed up another 80 something gallons of 1-to-1 sugar feed. So that's what I was trying to rush around and do. So I'll work on getting that on tomorrow afternoon after I finish up some work. But so far, everything's looking really good.
We went through over the weekend. We went through the bees and marked ones that were big enough to split. Okay. And then yesterday we went through. One of our friends here, Jim Masucci, had some Minnesota hygienic queens coming in from Texas somewhere.
Yeah.
So we were made about 13 splits to put those queens in. So that's what we did yesterday, and he mixed up feed today, and we'll probably feed tomorrow.
Yeah. So far so good. Everything is looking really good. We had 2 nights, Sunday night and Monday night, that got down into about 26 degrees. And I was kind of praying that would bounce back and kind of hold because I knew I was making splits. So I think moving from here on out, it looks to be a little bit more steady for right now. So, I'm glad it's not up in the 70s and 80s like it had been. Good Lord. That's a little bit much to take, when you come out of winter, right?
You're not supposed to be sweating while you're going through bees in March.
No,
that's right. That for the end of May and June.
Especially here in St. Louis, I'll say that, right? So, it's as long as things move along steady, it's kind of what we want, right? We don't want any big highs and lows. Those are never fun to deal with. They always upset the everything that goes on with the plants, and of course the net reflects on the bees themselves, right? So just kind of even out those highs and lows the best that we can, and some rain, but nothing that's going to be complete washout. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Say a prayer and hope that we can get what we're looking for there, but may or may not happen. But so far so good. Everything's looking really good, and today was a nice day.
It was a nice day, and I tell you, I'm like you, Tom. I'd rather ramp up real slow, like kind of what we've gotten so far. We hit that little cold snap, right? But now let it kind of ease on up into that warm weather, and man, I think the bees are still just going to boom. I mean, the hives I was in today, I was surprised how strong they were. They were just really strong. So.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get any big cold snaps when some of those big nectar flows start going in you all's area as well as mine, because then that really starts to be a little more devastating, right? So
you get that Arctic blast and then it hits the Appalachian Mountains, and then we get it wedges up against us trying to get over the mountains, and it's just not pretty for us. And we, like I said, last year we lost all of our all of our apple trees, our blackberry bars, our black locust was blooming. It just wiped it all out. So we lost a lot of nectar flow.
Tell those Canadians to keep their weather where it belongs.
Yeah. Where's Ethan at? Tell him to keep that cold weather up there, man. Or James McNally, either one of those boys.
every once in a while, their weather gets loose and comes bouncing around down here in the Midwest and the southern states, and we need to make a phone call and tell those guys to come down here and get that, right?
Yeah, control your weather up there. Come on.
We're not supposed to get that nasty stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, Lee, what's going on down there in the southern part of the states?
Rain, and more rain. We rained out early day, got a little more rain coming tomorrow, but at least we above freezing. I think we hit about 65 here today. Let's see. Yeah, we're about 56 right now, but rain's supposed to stop probably around lunchtime tomorrow. And now that I'm actually able to walk a little more, I may get into the bees either Saturday evening or Sunday, because I think I'm working Saturday. But the nectar, it's coming in pretty decent here right now. We got blackberries everywhere growing. And I took a look at the privet trees. The little buds have come out on them. They just hadn't opened up yet. But they're loaded. So when they do open, I believe we're going to get a good privet flow this year.
And the swarming is up
last year.
What's that, Melissa?
Said hopefully it'll make up for missing it last year.
Yeah, we didn't get no privet last year and very little tallow. Just that late freeze, it knocked everything out for us.
Do you all see a pretty good flow off that off the privet?
Some years we do, some years we don't. Now, if we don't have a late freeze, I'll get a whole lot. I'd say a whole lot, 4 or 5 5-gallon buckets.
Wow.
Of a real light honey. Renee had in the background.
Hi, Renee. How you doing? She might as well pop in now and say hello.
Hey, Renee, we need that dog too, by the way.
Ricky said he needs a dog. She's trying to check the mini fridge for my drinks.
Yeah, she's running out on that comment.
Oh, she don't like a camera.
So Lee, if I'm not mistaken, down there where you're at, the swarming's on now, right? You guys are full blown swarm season, right?
I would say full blown swarm season right now. Usually, to me, my biggest indicator is when the Bradford pears are bloom completely out. Even though the bees don't really mess with them, that just seems to be our biggest swarm time. And then these little rainstorms that we've been having, a lot of times right after a rainstorm is when you'll notice a swarm coming out, because they're all crammed in that box. They're ready to get out, but they're stuck because of weather. So when it does break clear, they're ready to go.
I tell you what, I think last year the rain and the storm saved us a couple times from swarms happening because we didn't have time to get to the bees. Like, oh, it's going to be rainy. So we're going to have to get to them that next day because otherwise they're going to be gone.
Well, between work and then the past week and a half or so, I hadn't hardly been able to walk. So I haven't even been out to the bees. Yeah. But like I said, coming from the front yard up to the house and everything, I did notice some of the other stuff blooming out. So hopefully I can get out there this weekend.
That's good to hear that you're doing
if I don't already have a swarm that's gone by now.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk to our special guest here. Let me make sure I don't butcher her name like I did last stream that we did. It's Karen Teague. Is that correct?
That's correct. You got it. Yes.
Gold star for Ricky.
Yeah, I'm in today. So just so you know, I met Karen at the North Carolina conference, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I've seen her at Cayman's conferences before also.
I've been there as well.
But it was this conference smaller, so you really got to kind of go and see the vendors, enjoy each vendor, and talk to them. So I come by Karen's place, and I seen the small hives there, and I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting, and got to talking to her a little bit about it, and I'm really amazed. I'm like, hey, I got to bring her on here. And then during the conference, we kind of talked about it on the live stream, and then it really got my mind to rolling about these little hives. And I thought, wow, I'm glad she's going to be coming on and talking about them. So Karen, tell us a little bit about your beekeeping history, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got into these small hives, okay?
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here. We started beekeeping, and I say we because it was a homeschool project to start with. It was in our curriculum that we were doing just about bees in general. And I thought, well, I've been interested in bees. I know they're good for the environment. Wanted to just, see if that was something that we could maybe do. And I looked into it and ordered a package that we had to pick up in a couple months. And then I did crash course YouTube binge watching every night. And that's basically, how I thought. I was feeling kind of confident, And then I picked up the package and I brought them home, and I ended up calling in for moral support because I was scared stiff actually once I had them in my so it was an interesting start. We dropped the queen cage in the bottom of the package before, trying to get the lid off. The cage slipped into the mass of bees, and I'm reaching in there trying to find the queen, and it was just, I did every single thing wrong, unplugged the wrong end of the wrong cork out, so I basically direct released her right in there. Mm-hmm. But amazingly, through everything, the hive took off. We had a great time. And the kids were involved in all this to start with. But then as the colony got larger and larger and larger, the kids got further and further and further back because it was starting to get more intimidating. And I realized that it was just not something they could easily really be involved in. The frames were quite large. My daughter was only 6 at the time. And, she couldn't really hold the frames very well. Just not confident about it too. I think it was a bit overwhelming. So that year, that Christmas, I decided to make them a smaller version of a beehive. And I had, have some woodworking little bit of woodworking experience. Not much at the time though. I mean, I think everything I made had a butt joint. So it was I could do some basic things, but I had a lot to learn. So it was quite an adventure. I got 3 of those done for Christmas somehow. And we went and got them each a package of bees in the spring. And it was an absolute blast. It was so fun. The hives were a lot more manageable. The kids were a lot less intimidated. I mean, anytime you're into the bees, it's a little intimidating. But so we've had the mini hives going. This will be our 3rd season. So, but yeah, they've been doing well. We've been learning a lot. We have 13 hives now. We just caught a swarm right after we came home from the North Carolina Bee Conference. I had just bought the bee vac, and I got a call for initiation 2 days later. I hadn't even charged the whole thing. You're plugged in a charge, and it ended up being a small little swarm on the side of somebody's house. So we caught that and put it in like a single box of our mini hives, and which is kind of nice because they're so small, and if you catch a small swarm, you stick them in there and they can manage it pretty well. So so that
was the perfect size for your mini hives then, right?
Yeah, we use them my daughter, she's 9 now. She wanted we watched Jeff Horchoff's videos almost every Saturday. We watch them in the morning, and she had said to me probably like 6 months ago, she said, we need to get on the cutout list. And I was like, well, not sure about cutout. Don't know about that, but we can see about swarms. So we talked to the association, got on the list for being included on the list of people for swarm catches. So we've gotten a few, and most of the ones that we get are well, we've only had 3 calls so far, but they're usually pretty small. So it's nice to be able to put them in a small little colony, and they seem to be able to do pretty well that way.
So you're really family oriented, I know, because if you guys go watch her videos, and I usually don't do this, but she's got a very good channel. If you guys don't mind, go to her channel and help support her. I didn't know this, but I've been following her for a long time. But go follow Karen. I mean, she's a very good family lady. She puts some really good content out there. Get out there and help support her. I really like what she's doing. And we're going to get into that a little bit more, because I'll be honest with you, your setup's really got my mind going. And Brian from Blair Street Bee Farm here, he started talking about it, and I mean, my head about explodes. Like, this is what I need to do here on my farm, because I'm going to do some queen rearing. This is what I want to do. But Karen, how long have you guys been doing these for?
Well, so that was 2021. So this is our 4th. This will be our 4th season. We started in the spring of 2021, I guess. Okay. If I'm doing my math right. Yeah. So it's not been that long, really. But once we got started, even though it was a homeschool project to begin with, it became my obsession, really. Right. So I watch bee videos every single day on YouTube. I have to see what everybody's doing. I want to know what's going on. I want to learn as much as I can. I just love the bees. And this is the hardest time of the year. So we are really good at keeping our bees alive through the winter. That doesn't seem to be something I struggle with. I don't lose I've only lost, I think, 2 or 3 colonies. But I'm terrible at keeping my queens in the spring. Every spring. I don't have the timing. And you guys are talking about all these different flowers that are blooming. I don't know what's blooming. The only ones I recognize are the maple, and I think, okay, I know I need to get ready for something here. So I'm hoping this year that we'll actually get a decent amount of honey. But so far we've only gotten 5 gallons. That's like our biggest honey crop each year. So.
5 gallons is better than no.
That's right. That's right.
And you're getting your bees through winter, so that's a check right there. That's a win-win. So it's not all about how much honey you get. I think a lot of people really get their mind tied up. I got to get this much honey.
Mhm.
Getting your bees through winter, having good bees. If you can get that timing to do those splits or get those colonies to where you're saving those queens and you're not losing them, it's so important. It's to set up early spring. And Karen, I'll be honest with you. Every year I say, I'm going to have all my equipment ready. They're going to be ready to go. I'm going to be able to throw everything on there and I'll be good. And it's like right now I'm thinking, gosh, I'm already behind. I'm so behind already. So
that's right. That's what happens. In the last few years, this year and then last spring, I went to a bee conference, and that takes a lot of preparation. And I lose track of what's going on with my bees. I go to the conference, and then our swarming usually seems to be starting kind of early to mid March, and so this year I was really proactive. I said, I may not have everything perfect for the conference, but I need to go check my bees, before I leave. So made sure that they all had space, and I've been trying to equalize things. I don't really want to make a whole bunch more hives. I really don't think I can manage, more than 10 to 15, just because homeschooling and working and all the things that I'm trying to do. So I really don't want to make a bunch of splits like everybody's doing, but yet I want to keep them all in the boxes. So I'm really sort of struggling with how I'm trying to just do equalizing right now, just to, have I have some of the mini hives, half my colonies are mini hives, and then half of them are the larger 10 frame laying straw. And so I'm just trying to take the more full mini boxes, take some of those frames of brood out, stick it in with the new swarm catch I have, and just try to move brood over there every week, a little bit at a time. And I don't know, I'm not sure that's the way to do it, but I'm trying to just keep them all in one place.
I think you're doing great there. Like you said, equalizing is a great way, especially if all your colonies are in the same yard, which I'm guessing by the looks of that one picture, they might be, equalizing those colonies. I mean, if you have a colony that's just slightly behind, but yet the queen is still doing a good job, maybe she doesn't have quite the resources she's looking for.
She's got all them kids.
Equalizing is definitely a way to go.
Yeah, I have a couple. So I live on a half acre in a neighborhood. So I'm trying to keep my neighbors happy. And the mini hives are sort of discreet. They're sort of small. But all of my larger hives, I've decided they're just too rambunctious for the neighborhood. So I've moved those off to a friend's property. So it's a little harder to manage it because they're over there. Yeah. But I'm trying to be a bit strategic. And when I go over there, have kind of a plan, sure. Bring extra boxes. I feel like I'm loading up my whole truck with all of these what ifs, better bring this just in case, but that just in case. And what if I have to bring a colony back home? Better bring a extra box just in case. So
you almost kind of have to do that, though. I mean, I think you're spot on with what you're saying, really. My wife and I live on a 3rd acre piece of property here too, inside of a neighborhood where there's some properties that are a little bit bigger. But I think, like you're saying, that's really key when people start thinking about beekeeping is, for one, if you get hives that are too big, that means that, as the population grows, you're also going to get some of those bees that are a little more defensive. That population is going to grow too, right? Yep. So if they get a little bit wild or a little bit rambunctious, it is wise, I think, in order to keep good with the neighbors, maybe to move that hive off the property somewhere else if you've got that option to do so. And that's kind of what we do. We keep smaller hives here. We make queens here. We do some splits, stuff that requires a little bit more effort,
more attention.
Right. Yeah, so we're able to do that here. Keep smaller colonies. If anything gets a little bit mean for whatever reason, it gets shipped off to a farm field somewhere where it can be mean all at once, right? So yeah. I think you're doing really well, and trying to be cordial with the neighbors and stuff, because again, you get one hive that gets a little bit wound up. Next thing you know, a neighbor is going to have all these wild ideas that every hive you have there is mean, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Bob Walker asked, "Where are you from, Karen? What's your city and everything?" Because Bob's in South Carolina.
Oh, I didn't realize that, Bob. I'm in Lancaster, so I'm just shy of Charlotte by about an hour. So I'm up kind of near Rock Hill, if you know where that is, Fort Mill area.
And then Flower Street Farm Bees said, Karen, who are some of your favorite YR resources? YT, excuse me.
Oh gosh, I have a lot. Okay, so I told you I like to watch Jeff Orchoff. I like and Randy McCaffrey. But for learning, I learned a lot from Fred Dunn. A lot of the bee biology aspects from Fred Dunn, and then I would like to watch Cayman Reynolds for the practical bee yard, hive inspections, what to look for. Who else have I enjoyed watching a lot of? I don't know. I have watched so many different ones, a variety, but those are the ones where I've learned the most from. I've also watched JC's Bees, and I like to listen to a lot of the live streams as well. I like to listen to what people are talking about and what's going on. It gives me kind of a clue. If they see something going on, then I kind of go, oh, maybe I need to look out for that when I can.
And
it's always kind of neat to see what's going on with other people in other states, the country. It can always kind of help you understand, even when you're thinking about it, we listen to guys that are further down south, like, Ricky or Spanky or, Lee, those guys like that, or even people further south, they're saying, hey, this is blooming, that's blooming. If it's a similar plant that we have here in St. Louis, right, we can know that we can kind of follow that sort of green line that runs from south to north and say, okay, I'm probably looking at maybe 2 weeks for this, that, or the other, right? So we can kind of follow along. So I think these live streams or these live chats that people follow can help understand that, what's going on in the country. What are you seeing or what are you not seeing?
What can you anticipate?
Yeah, certain things. Way? Yeah, for sure. So that's great to see those.
Yeah, Craig Branch is also really good. He hadn't done as many videos lately, but he has some really good ones, and he lives not too far from me, so I'll watch him. And also Bob Benny, even though he's a little bit further, Bob's got endless amounts of information.
He does.
Yeah. It's
he always delivers it with that attitude that's just so non-judgmental, right? I mean, I don't think that you could probably upset that man. He just has. First of all, I just believe that, and I've never met him personally. I've been at conferences with him, but I just never have approached him. But I'll tell you, I have the utmost respect for him. I can tell you that the way he presents himself, he's got one of these hearts of gold, I think. So, and his information is just, it's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He has so much information. I can't believe the operation that he runs, and he's so mild-mannered.
I know, right?
He has all this. You can tell his employees love him.
Yes.
You can tell that he has everybody's respect, and he doesn't ever need to be condescending. I don't know. I respect that.
I agree. Everything you said, all the above. Yeah. I thought that it might have been JW that recently told me. I didn't know specifically how many that he had, but I thought JW told me the other day that he had somewhere like 60 or 65 employees throughout everything from his retail store to the commercial operation where the guys go out and work the bees and the guys that are working, behind the scenes and the woodworking stuff and all that. I mean, he's got quite a few employees there. So that's a lot of balls in the air to juggle, so he seems like he does it calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So Steve Amos, you live in Gaston County, I think you were saying. So yeah, you're really close.
Yeah, Steve Amos is the one that's also like you. He does the surveys and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So Karen does some surveying too. If you guys don't know that, which I think is really awesome because she gets to spend all day outside. That's not fair.
Well, I'm kind of doing the oversight portion of the surveying right now, but so normally I do geology work when I travel for field work. So we install monitoring wells, do soil sampling, groundwater sampling, and then I do a lot of report writing. So the surveying is actually kind of a new thing for me. I get to go out and kind of watch what's going on, but I don't know a whole lot about it. But the guy that I'm out here working with, he just loves his job. And he was out there And he's like, okay, I'm disappearing off into the woods. I'll check in with you in a few hours. Off he'd go with all his instruments and disappear. And it was actually a little scary today because they were doing a controlled burn. The Forest Service was up in our area doing a controlled burn, and we had radios and everything, and they were letting us know what was going on. And then I guess the fire escaped, got out of control, and the radios were just blowing up, and the fire department's coming in, and everybody's like, they're saying, send in the bicycle with the leaf blower to clear off a fire break. And I'm going, oh my gosh, where's my guy? So it was a little intense today. But everything was okay in the end. They caught it under control. It's like he was just out there in the woods somewhere. Is there a free website for? No, I'm not sure what that is.
I'm not sure what that is either. Tim, if you don't mind, just elaborate just a little bit with us.
So the mini hives, you made those yourself, correct?
Yeah, that's what those mini hives you made.
Did you have to make frames for them also, or did you find some frames that you adapted to them?
Well, the ones I made for my kids, what I did was I took a standard deep frame and I cut out the top bar, like maybe 10 inches of it. And then I cut out the bottom, and then I stuck them together with a dowel. So that was extremely time consuming. So I found a company that would make them for me. So the frames that I have there are half of the length of a standard deep frame. So if you can picture that. And then what we do there in that picture, when I need to move brood to I need to remove brood pretty frequently during the swarm season in order to keep the bees in the hive, prevent swarming. So I'll attach them with zip ties to a metal bar that I cut, like I get those at Home Depot, just like a flat aluminum bar, and I cut them to the size of a standard deep. And then I zip tie the 2 mini hives side by side, and then I'll stick them into my standard hives. That way. And so what I have to do is usually move out about 2 frames of brood about every week for about 4 or 5 weeks. And then I just give them 2 fresh new frames, and then they'll stay busy drawing those out. And that seems to have worked with the swarm prevention for me.
Now, what type of foundation are you using inside your mini frames?
Just wax. I'll just cut the wax foundation pretty much in half, basically, and I attach it. Sometimes I do starter strips in there. If I'm being more conservative, even I'll just stick a little starter strip in there. But I still have problems sometimes with the starter strip. If I want everything to be perfect, putting in a full sheet of the wax foundation seems to be the best, because we've had a little bit of cross combing.
Yeah.
So,
the bees have a mind of their own, right?
They do. And in that small size box, they just draw everything out, just all the way across. They don't leave any of the, in the larger hives, you end up with those frames on the side that they don't use, and you're trying to get them to draw those out and they just won't.
Yeah.
So with the mini hives, that's nice. They do use every bit of space. So
interesting.
Now,
I wonder if you could use the mini hives there for making making cut comb, because really, if you've ever done that before, and my wife and I are working a little hard this year at making cut comb since there's been so much request for it.
That's a good idea.
But just think about it. If they're phenomenal because they're building a lot of comb inside there. If you have a nice, if they're building out that nice, which it looked like, I couldn't even tell by the look of that picture that it wasn't like a plastic foundation or something. They actually did a really good job of drawing it out, and not cross combing it or something weird. So see if you can make some cut comb out of it.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because they definitely don't hold back. It's a lot of management in the spring,
I bet it is.
The rest of the year is pretty cruising, they maintain the space really nicely.
Good.
And once we can get past, end of May, we're really pretty much cruise through the rest of the year. And then we just consolidate down for the winter, get them down to, 2 boxes, but we've even overwintered some of them in just 1 box. So
okay.
It's they've been able to. Of course, I'm not up north, you know.
Yeah.
But they've done really well, even with a small number of bees.
Sure. I was just talking with the commercial guy the other day in my area. He's on the opposite side of the state over near Kansas City. And him and I were having a conversation specifically about bees in a smaller space. And that, and I know there's some research on it, but even what I have noticed myself is that if you have a hive that is dwindling, it's always best to reduce it down into the box that you're going to use. So if I only have, say, 4 frames of bees, I shouldn't, and we generally use 8-frame equipment. So just for an example, I don't use 10-frame equipment, with the exception of 2 of the Apiary hives that I've got. But, you know, at that point in time, it would make sense to now reduce them down to a 5-frame nuke, right? So that's what we've done a lot in the past. Bees seem to do much better when they're in more of a confined space, but there's always that fine line, right? Where you have to worry about the springtime, like you're talking about. If you don't pull out 2 of those mini frames and put them into a larger hive, they're going to start hitting the trees, right? So there's like that fine line of understanding when those nectar flows come in and hit hot and hard and heavy, that you might need to then give them additional space, more so than you would say throughout the rest of the year, right? So, you know, kind of understanding those things are kind of key, I guess.
They're tricky. I do have one. I do this every winter. I usually have one of my 10-frame colonies is only in a 10-frame box with maybe 8 frames of bees, and we're going into winter. And it's not enough bees to put a super of honey over them. Not really sure what to do. So what I end up doing is moving them into a 5-frame nuke box. Yeah. And then I'll do like a 5/5 situation.
Oh yeah.
And then that seems to work really good, you know. And then, but that was my biggest problem. Spring, I was getting ready to go to the North Carolina conference. I took a peek inside and they just like boiled out, you know. And if we hadn't had that freeze, I know we would have had a swarm, because I had seen them. They were pulling out all their drones, the drone larvae, but they had the drones all underway, you know. And then they decided, nah, let's get rid of these guys. So yeah, I would have lost that one for sure. So I ended up moving them right before the conference, put them back into a 10-frame, put a super over the top, you know, and so far so good.
Yeah.
So
sometimes
I haven't checked in 2 weeks. So
sure. In the past, we've gotten to where we were so busy and the bees were brooding so heavy and the populations were growing so much, you know, that again, you know, I have a day job. I own a landscaping company. So that hits at the same time, right? The plants that we deal with and the landscaping, the bees and working their plants and such, they all hit at the same time. So there is occasion where I may have to just go out and throw a box on top of a colony to buy myself a little bit of time, you know, maybe checkerboard just a couple of frames into that, say, 3rd box, because I'm running double deeps, just to buy myself just a little bit of time so they can understand that that's extra usable space so they don't start hitting the trees. And then when I can get back to them at that point in time, maybe I pull that off, make a split or equalize a colony, and then I can throw supers on it from there, right? So it's always that tricky time where we have to learn how to add just enough space that the bees will still flourish well, but we don't want to add so much space to where it kind of sets them back a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I can imagine your management on those small hives probably has to be pretty intense, like you said, in the springtime.
Yeah, I have all hands on deck. Kids are all out. Everybody takes a hive, and we go through and work on it. And yeah, and it works out good. The kids like the spring the best. Once summer comes on, they don't really care to be out in the heat as much. So
that's everybody.
That's for sure. DC, it was good to see you on. I know I've talked to you over the years.
DC is everywhere. He is one of the finest gentlemen on YouTube. And maybe one day he'll come on my channel so I can give him a hard time.
There you go.
So Karen, some of us was talking when we was down at the conference, North Carolina conference, and what really got my mind going is I wanted to do mini mating nukes or mini mating, you know, small hives. And your setup is perfect for that. And not only can I bring children into here's a small colony, they can pull the frames out, really look at them. They're not heavy, which is awesome. They can take the boxes apart. That's even better. And, when I'm done, like you did with that dowel and connect those frames together, I'll put that right back to a hive and not lose any resources whatsoever. So it really got me thinking after the conference. I'm like, I'm going to do that. You really got my mind to go in, and I'm like, I'm going to do this and use this for my breeding program of my queen. So I appreciate that. And guys, I'm telling you out here, this would be a very good idea if you want to do any kind of mating nukes. This would be perfect for that.
What I think I would like to do is to make some double screen boards to put in between so that each box can have its own entrance, its own queen, and you can raise like 4 or 5 queens in one stack up, and then have the entrances coming out all different sides, and kind of like a queen castle but vertical,
Right.
So you're sharing the heat, you're sharing the same roof, kind of similar idea,
I've got to say I'm definitely going to do that. I appreciate it. And I'm so glad I got to talk to you. It's like, wow, much explosion went off of my head. And I was talking to Brian on here, Flare Street, and he was talking about that's what he does. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. If you guys ain't done it, go to Karen's site and subscribe. She's a great lady, guys. She really
Thank you all. Thank you all. I appreciate you guys subscribing. I really do appreciate the support.
Yep. But yeah, you definitely got my mind going after being down there. I'm like, this is a great way to do it, and I'm not buying all these little styrofoam containers. I can just build these half frames and then throw them right into a big box if I need to. So that's perfect.
Well, those little mini mating nukes, they're like $30 to $35 a piece to begin with.
Wow, yeah, they are. That's true. That's true.
And I can take those frames, right, and I can put them in a colony, let that colony draw the comb out, right, and then boom, and put them resources in one of those mini mating nukes, and they're ready to go. That's awesome.
Yeah, it works out good. The outside dimensions of the hive, they're 10.5-inch square. That's what I have them at. Yeah, so they hold 6 frames, and each of those is half. So it's like each box basically holds the equivalent of a 3-frame nuke, like one of those mini mating nukes.
Yeah, and Brian says put them back together for winter. That's just kind of what you were talking about right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it keeps them warm. And I have a little bit of insulation too in the roof, so I have I have an inner cover that's got insulation, and then I have insulation in the roof as well to keep the moisture out from dripping down over them.
Yeah, so DC says a mini long hive. Now there we go. That's all up my alley right there.
Yeah, there you go. Combine both.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna go grab something to show you guys. So you guys keep talking to Karen here. That's basically the same thing as a mini hive. So just hold on just a second. I'll show you guys this.
It looks like David asked, "What do you do for extracting honey?" That's a curiosity I would have as well.
Yes. Well, to start with, because I didn't have an extractor, we have a commercial salad spinner that we got on Amazon.
Yeah.
And we can fit 3 frames in our commercial salad spinner, and then just hand crank it. And that works out really well. And then now I have a regular extractor. So if I'm extracting honey from my other hives, I can throw the mini hives in there as well. I just stick them in there sideways, just like a regular deep frame. It's just not as tall in there.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so but I don't really like to get the whole extractor out for, so what I have to do, which I even did this week, is one of the colonies is getting really full. Mm-hmm. So in addition to taking some brood out, I also found that they had a bunch of last year's honey still stashed in there. They had a lot of nectar coming in, so I needed to make room. So I took some of their old honey out, took 3 frames out, and extracted it in the salad spinner. And then it's an easier thing to clean up. And then I give them their frames right back so they can put fresh nectar in it. And
so on this commercial salad spinner you have you ever done any videos with it?
No, I haven't actually.
You need to do that, because that is honestly, I have an idea in my mind of what it looks like, but I really don't know for sure. And I'm thinking to myself, that's really a genius idea. You just learn to adapt, right? Without buying some expensive equipment, you just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, it ended up being more. I mean, it was still like $100 just about, or maybe it was like 75 or 80. So it was kind of expensive. But to me, it was a bargain deal because I didn't want to buy a regular extractor at the time. You know?
sure.
So
And you
I
can
had
still,
done
even
that.
if you said you have a bigger extractor now, so that you can use the smaller one for doing just little bitty, like you said, small little ones. So yeah, definitely.
A little batch. Let's do it in the kitchen real quick. So
Yeah.
what did you have, Ricky? That you were showing?
You're muted.
You're actually muted.
Made by Spanky here. It's all 3D printed. This thing is incredible. I'm going to put bees in this hive. It is absolutely incredible. Oh, gosh. And it's heavy.
Wow.
That is cool. Go up, Ricky.
Oh,
Now hold it there for 5 minutes.
I can't. It's too heavy.
Spanky's laughing because he knows how heavy it is.
That thing is heavy. I hate when bees draw some comb out in there. It's going to be unreal. But thought about doing some queen rearing in there. And then also, this will be really good to take to the kids in the schools and let them really get in there and be able to play with it. It's going to be perfect.
Definitely.
Spanky,
Cool.
you're the man, brother. Thank you, sir.
So I have a question for Spanky. On the front of that hive, where it looked like there was an entrance and maybe a screen, and there was 4, 2 on each side, little tubes. What is that about?
That's a pollen trap.
Okay, I gotcha.
Oh,
And
wow.
those tubes are, you can open and let the drones out.
Yeah, I see.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
That man thinks of everything.
Yeah, he does. How long did it take
That
to
is-
3D print that, Spanky? Give me an idea of how many hours.
It took a while designing it, and then after that, printing and doing some revisions. But yeah, now that I've got it all designed up, it wouldn't take too long to make it.
Yeah. Well, that's really neat for sure.
Yeah,
A lot of detail there.
got my cathedral out there now. I faded it up.
It's okay.
Try to put the swarm in it.
How much do you think that little horizontal hive weighs?
Gosh, about
I don't know.
25 pounds.
Nah, it don't weigh that much.
There you go. And then we can demonstrate.
I think I can demonstrate it. Spanky's going to yell at me.
Well, I ain't gonna yell at you.
This is the back side, and you can see it opens up.
Yeah.
And then the wings open up, and then it's got a thermostat. It's got some temperature gauge, and then some thermostats for inside the hive also. So it's really pretty cool. I mean,
Wow.
look at it.
Oh,
He went all out with it. I tell you, he sure did.
There's a lot of thought in that right there.
No doubt. In the bottoms, the little screens pop out right here. Oops. Right there at the bottom. So it's got screen bottom boards in it. So yeah, it's amazing.
So I see there's 4 frames in the center. Are there 4 frames on each side as well?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yep. Yeah, and he made a little queen excluder for it. I mean, this is crazy. This is so awesome.
Wow.
that's cool.
You know, Castle Hives, Spanky, I bet he couldn't build one of these.
Do what?
Ryan from Castle Hives, I bet couldn't build one of these.
He'd have to design it first. I don't know anybody that's putting out the designs for him. I don't know about that.
You wouldn't sell one, Spanky?
That probably
It,
took hours and hours.
Hours and hours, yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know when you build your hives, how long it takes you to build one of those little tiny hives, right? I mean, from what Spanky's doing, every little bitty piece, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more of a prototype to see if that design will work full scale.
Yeah, so Spanky thinks this would be a very good hive for somebody with a disability. You can just pull those drawers back with one hand. They'll slide back and you can get right in your bees. So some I'm going to try on a horizontal hive. So he was telling me about it. I couldn't quite get it all the way in my head. He's like, okay, I'll just 3D print you one. Here you go, brother.
That's
Like, wow.
really cool. That is really a great idea.
Yeah. So he may be my next big engineer.
That's really great to be able to design something and have it and print out a prototype. Really, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I have to ask though, how many revisions did you have, Spanky?
It took a few. I've got a stack of plates over here that I would revise something and then have to do a new one. So it takes some time.
Did you have any advice from the bees? Did they help you design it?
Well, I mean, I looked up all the stuff like the bee space,
Yeah.
and all that, and then foundation size, because that's printed out. I printed that foundation out.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and then I wax dipped it.
Yeah, it looked like there was a pretty heavy wax coating on it. I could see that. So I mean, that literally is by the way you designed it, that could be an operational hive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stackable mini hives just like that.
Yeah.
So is 3D printing, is that kind of your hobby?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds expensive, much like beekeeping.
It can be.
So Karen, you building all your equipment? Are you building any of your 10 frame equipment, or just the small tiny house stuff?
I have built the nuke box I have, and I would probably make some of my regular 10 frame. Although the thing is that when I go to these conferences and like Man Lake is there and they're selling boxes for like $11, I can't even buy my lumber for $11.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly right. You're 100% right.
So I've kind of decided that what I'm going to do is build my bottom boards and things like my entrance reducers. I mean, I can do that, and it's with scrap wood I have, and then I'll just buy my boxes when I go to conferences and can get a killer deal on lumber I could never get myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can get something from Greg Burns there. I seen he was on here just now, so he's got some pretty good deals on some stuff.
Yeah, and he's got great. I have some of his boxes actually. I really love his wax dip boxes. They are fantastic. And I haven't tried I know they had a newer. Is it the Endura? Is it Endura Hive that he's?
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those look really great too. I haven't gotten any of those yet, but I have his older style, and I've had those for a couple of years, and they still look brand new, other than having propolis all on the inside.
Yep.
So.
And Steve Amos here, he made a very good point.
Well, hopefully with a good coat of paint or two, maybe it'll be fine.
Yeah. I think they're starting to come around a little bit. I think they're feeling some of the customer pressure on them, to do a little bit better. So I think they are. So.
Now, you said you don't make your frames; somebody makes them for you, right?
Yeah.
So you're putting the money into it, not the time.
Yeah. The frames I don't have. Okay, so I have two workshops basically. I have my one at my house, which is small. I use my router there to do all my box joints, and I have a job site table saw where I can make cuts in a pinch. But I don't have space in my workshop to have the big lumber run through to do the long rib cuts or anything. So I go to Makerspace in Charlotte. It's like you pay it's like a gym membership basically, but you can use the workshop. They have 3D printers, they have woodworking gear, they have everything at Makerspace. So I go, that's it right there. So that's not my workshop, that's Makerspace. And so I'll go and bring all of my, 8-10 foot boards, and I go and make all of my big cuts there, kind of assembly line style. And then I do the box joints and assembly at my house in the workshop. But I don't really making frames. I'm not sure how they even make those. To To me, that seems like, however I would do it would be a super time consuming.
Yeah, it's not really worth it.
Yeah, I think you'd probably. I imagine they have special equipment for that. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I got some special cuts for it, no doubt. Special jigs, anyway. Yep.
I feel like the time that you would put into making frames is just cheaper to buy them.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Now, Charlie that's on here, Sawmill Charlie, I was up at his place. And you want to talk about a workshop, that man, I would be in heaven, I'll be honest with you. He's got lumber, he's got saws, planers, everything, you know.
But if you want a really good novelty item for sale, I would just do whole frame honey. I'd freeze that frame so that way you kill anything on it, and then I'd take some shrink wrap or something, just wrap it, sell the whole frame. You'd be surprised. I think people would get it because it's little. It's it's a novelty.
Yeah,
That's stuff if you want.
Yeah,
it's kind of something that the Hive Life fondant can just fit right in there perfect. Look at that.
I know. I didn't plan that, and I couldn't believe it. But that is what I use. I use that stuff religiously in the winter. It is fantastic, and I just pop one of those in. Actually, the bees really go through a ton of it. I find like in February, March, I can put one of those in earlier, and it'll last forever. And then once we get to like February, I feel like I'm putting in a new pack every 2 weeks. So to go through it like, ooh, wow, that's
look at that saw.
Is this Sawmill Charlie?
Yeah, Sawmill Charlie. Yeah, that's one of his blades for his logs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was a trim blade for doing trim work.
Yeah. That's for making frames.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. I can see that. I would hate to see the size hive that the frames would go into.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, folks. You could have went up Charlie's place and talked to him. I could have stayed there for hours. I mean, hours. He's great to talk to, and the history that he lets you know of what's about the place.
Oh,
it's just unreal, and it comes right off his head. It's so easy. I mean, he's smart feller, and so's his brother actually.
Well, where's he located at?
All the way up in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
how cool. Charlie trims his mustache. I've got to see that one, Brian. I'll be honest with you. I'd love to see that. So guys, we're going to open the chat up. Anybody wants to come on and talk to Karen? Anybody got any questions for Karen in the comment section? Ask it. Come on to the live stream. You're more than welcome to do so. I'll try to pin this as soon as Lee gets it up. Just come on and have a good time tonight for the next, 30 minutes to an hour, however long you guys want to stay on tonight. So, Karen, before everybody comes on, I just want to say it's been great having you on. I knew this was going to be a very special live stream, and having you on has been. And this feels like we've known you forever, to be honest with you.
Oh, I feel like that too. It's been a lot of fun. I've never been on a live stream before. It's a blast. You got to do this every time.
You've done great.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
So you have a couple videos that you need to do, Karen. One of those videos is you need to show the honey extraction inside the commercial salad spinner, and then try that cut comb this year. You don't have to buy the whole hot knife. You can buy just the simple stainless steel 4x4, whatever. You can do that. That's a little way for you to harvest it there, and even work with the kids that way, right? So you have to make a video doing that too.
That's good. Yeah.
When you use the little rectangular cutter, do you have to heat that up? Do you get that hot? Or
so I don't have experience with it personally, but I think it would probably be a good idea to do so. Yeah, if you were to lightly heat it up, and I'm not sure what you might use. Somebody else in the comments might have a great idea for that. I've never used one of those myself before, but I would think that if you did, heat it up just a little bit whenever you're cutting
Probably
that.
Just use a hot plate to heat it up.
Yeah, maybe you could use a hot plate, set it on a hot plate, and let that warmth kind of travel through there, and then cut it, and then take your little cut comb pieces off. maybe set it on a wire rack so they can drip all the way. And, then maybe if you decide to package it in the little plastic packages or what have you, that way you don't have honey dripping all the inside. But I think that'd be really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be really cool. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Having a real hard time trying to get this to post tonight.
That's why you have Lee do that for you. Lee's the tech guy.
He is, but he says he can't do this part. I have to do it. So.
Oh, Lee's kind of the tech wizard, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Show us your spot there, Lee. Show everybody your stuff. I know you have several times, but
I don't know how you even learn how to do a live stream. I mean, do you get to practice before you're live, or do you just learn?
You just got to jump in there and go.
Look at that. Lee's
wow.
studio.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of Mr. Ed's Studio B, that's Studio Lee.
That's right. Studio Lee. There you go.
I may have to get Lee to do this for sure. He may just have to keep posting. I'll keep working on it. So Karen, what is your kids get in there with you all the time with your bees, or just periodically? Is there any of your kids that just say, "This is what I like. I love it"? Because I need some advice. I can't get Amber, my little one, to really get in there with the bees with me, and I don't want to push her too hard, but I want her to get into beekeeping. I want her to enjoy that. So
I think it seems to be a very personal thing. And all three of my kids come in the yard. They all like the bees. Darcy, my youngest, she is the one that really is into it. Now she's not out there with me every time. There's a lot of times when I just need to get something done. She's busy doing something else. But if I ever say, "Hey, Darcy, you want to come out with me?" She never says no. She's right out there. And she has her little, it's like a little bug vac for kids, where they can vacuum the bugs up, spiders, and so she'll go out there with me. She gets so excited when we have a hive problem, and she'll vacuum all the little hive beetles out of the cells and feeds them to the chickens. And I don't know, she just really enjoys it, because she'll do it, she'll be sweating buckets and she's out there and she doesn't notice it. So I know she's really into it when she can put aside the discomforts of being out there and do it anyway. So yeah. And I've taken the bees, and I have like a little portable observation hive that I'll borrow from the association. And I've gone to some of our homeschool groups and showed the bees, and you can just tell there's just some kids that they are glued to that thing and they don't move, and they just watch and they ask a million questions, and other kids will look and go, "Oh, that's cool." And I think it just really depends on the kid. But I don't know. I think for Darcy, having something small was kind of the transition that was helpful for her, because she had a healthy concern about the bees to start with. She still really doesn't like insects in general. She likes them, but she doesn't want them near her too close, and that goes for spiders and anything. But when we put her in a suit and she felt safe, and she had the gloves, and she had a little tiny frame with a couple hundred bees on it, it was like, that was the connection she needed.
So that's kind of what got her going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see Amber did one video for the school, and she really enjoyed it. And she likes to play with the bees because she's got her little suit on. But actually, to get her out there full time. So, but hey, maybe I offer her this dog and tell her that she's got to get in the bees. What do you think? Would that work?
Got to do a season of beekeeping before she can get the dog.
Oh, yes, but you're right. 100%. Yes.
You can't just, if you get in the bees with me, I'll give you the dog. Then it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I have a feeling, though, if your kids are anything like mine, that's going to be an uphill battle. You're going to push the entire way, the entire season.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't want to do it, oh my gosh.
Well, and if you do it in small bits of time too, that's probably helpful. If you say, "Hey, let's look at this one hive together," and you don't make it a chore, you don't make it like, "Hey, we got to get all this done," but we're going to look in this hive and see if we can find the queen. And if you just set like a small goal of making that one challenge. And then when you're done, it ends on a high note. You say, okay, thanks for joining me, let her go back in. And then it's not gotten to the point where, oh my gosh, not another hive,
Mhm. Great idea.
Well, she likes to do projects too. So I'm thinking about doing some projects with the bees, and maybe that would kind of get her in there also, because she's very project oriented. She's got plants sitting all in the house to see how the light in different directions and how well it grows, and she loves that kind of stuff. So if I can get her into the bees that way and figure out a way to do that, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she could help you make one of these mini hives, and that can be her specific hive. And then she can do, pollen trapping or the cut comb or something specific with it that might get her interest.
Yeah, and then if she gets paid, she'll be even happier because it's all about the money for her.
There you go.
Charlie, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, doing pretty good. Not too bad. I actually kind of missed the first half of your show here tonight. I had another meeting I had to be at, but I'll catch the instant replay and all that. So, no, it's been cold up here in Maryland. It's 38 degrees right now, and windy, and I'm waiting for it to finally get warm so I can sell some nukes. Hopefully get that out the door next week and all. So other than that, it's not too bad. You guys, did you put that ground fire out, Ricky?
Do what?
That ground fire.
Ground fire.
Yeah, you had that video where I think it's somebody, they put stumps in and whatever.
Yeah, I put that up here because I thought the whole mountain was on fire up here. I thought we had a volcano erupting in the mountains. I was like, this is crazy, But I guess you've seen that quite a bit, haven't you? Oh man.
Yeah, that's definitely where they put in trees and stumps and whatever, and it'll catch on fire like that underneath the ground. You wouldn't think it would, but it does.
Yeah.
I guess as that stuff's decaying, it builds heat.
Yeah, it does.
And Charlie, have you had any big fires at your sawmill there?
Other than a barn burning down in 1979, that's why we put that big steel building up.
Right.
Yeah.
So, no, we want no fires. Nothing
These
like
guys on the chat are being mean to me, Charlie.
Why?
They're giving money so Emmer can get a puppy, and I already told Emmer, no. I give her two options. I said, you either get rid of the cat you got, or you get rid of your mother. It's going to be one of those two if you want a dog. So,
hey, Ricky, if you need a place to stay, you can come on over. All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a drive for you, though.
Yeah. I may have to go up there, I tell you.
Yeah. You'll be just like me. You're always opening your mouth, putting your foot in it, with your spouse.
Yeah.
So, Karen, where are you located at? I missed all this good information.
I'm just south of Charlotte by an hour. So I'm in Lancaster, South Carolina.
No, North Carolina or Charlotte or South Carolina or North Carolina?
I'm in South Carolina. South
I know where
Carolina.
Larry's at. Hallelujah Farms.
I don't know, Larry.
Okay.
Not too far away from here, actually.
Close. Well, he's in Columbia.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she does a lot of these little small hives, Charlie, and I've been thinking that'll be really good for my mating nukes that I want to do. And then when I'm done for the resources, I can just put those right back in a hive with a little dowel that she uses, and I'm not losing anything that way. They should close up the gap in the center, and it'll be another frame, so it should work very well.
What they do.
Is that a half size frame hive?
Yeah. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to work really good for me.
I made some mating boxes for myself, but they're two framers that are, I see, that fit a normal size frame where I can just put them in. And what's that kind of like? Almost like a nuke box. Looks like to me.
Yeah, it's
Lengthwise.
almost like a small nuke box almost.
Yeah, they're square, so it's like a 6-frame nuke box, but half size and length.
Hmm.
Okay.
So, Charlie, do you want boxes then?
Hey, show them the picture.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna get me in trouble, Amber.
Oh, the puppy.
One of them hot dogs.
Yeah, if we could get Lee's from him, this would just settle everything. So, guys, you need to put in the chat, put Lee's dog. Give me a thumb up, but we need that dog. So,
Wait.
she's excited. I tell you, she's my youngest. So I didn't really spoil my oldest, but I've spoiled this and rotten. And you see what happened there with that. Karen, you got what, 3 kids? Is that correct?
I do. I have 3.
So do you spoil any of your kids? Do you give them everything they want? Because you see what I'm going through tonight.
No, they have to toe the line pretty tough here. Well, it's a mix. You know, they have to help out with quite a lot because we homeschool and I work full time. So they do their schooling online and they have to help with all the chores because I don't get many chores done at all Monday through Friday. So they help with keeping the house, organized and tidy, and they have to help with the chickens and the rabbit and the cats and all the. They have quite a bit they have to do.
Right.
But then we have a lot of fun too. So it's a mix. It's a good blend.
I can tell from your photos. Anybody goes on her again, go check her YouTube channel out, and you'll see how family oriented she is with her kids, and I love that. I just eat that up. So so if you go out there, subscribe to her channel. She's a great lady, and you can have her on here tonight, and you can tell she's just one of us, really. So we appreciate that. So
thank you.
Yeah. What about you, Melissa? How do you deal with your kids and in the beekeeping? Because I've seen your kids help you guys in beekeeping a lot. How do you do that?
We tell them that they want to live in their house, they have to help us out. No, the boys are really good. We have 17-year-old twin boys, and we have a 21-year-old daughter. She doesn't live at home anymore. But the boys aren't into the bees really at all. But if we need them to go out into the bee yard and help us, they'll do it. They have no issue. They're really good about assembling equipment and helping us load stuff and doing all the honey extraction and stuff like that. It's kind of whatever kids like to hang out at our house, they get roped into doing the honey extraction with us. So they hang out at the house, the girlfriends, anybody who hangs out at the house, they have to help during honey extraction. The boys will go out and help us pull the supers off, but they're not really into going out and doing inspections, and it's just not their interest. They're really good also about like if we've double booked ourselves for market days, or if Tom and I are going out of towns and we have a market scheduled, they can go out by themselves and set up a market and sell just fine. They're very knowledgeable about the bees, and any questions anybody asks them, they can pretty much answer. So they're very well spoken, and they're good conversationalists, and they get that from their dad, I think, because we all know how much Tom hates to talk, right? But yeah, the boys do good. They're a lot of help with us.
That's really good. How many hives do you have? About
right in the middle of summer last year, we had 117.
Oh wow.
Coming out of winter, we were like right around 80-ish, I think. And then we just did those 13 splits, which we'll probably be splitting more here in a few weeks as all the other colonies catch up. But yeah, we don't want to be above 150, but so between 100 and 150 is where we'll probably
see our
line.
Yeah. I think Charlie's trying to get to that 100 mark, ain't you, Charlie?
No, I try to go into winter with 30 and let it go at that. You know, and I think I'm going to be revamping my system here. I'm going to be more towards honey production than nuke production. I'll say it's a lot less stressful. I hate counting my chickens before they hatch type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that for quite a long time. And I don't know. I just, I feel like, yes, there's a lot of work when it comes to honey harvest and that, but once you get over that, then you're not having to touch the hives as much, except for mite treatments and things like that. And that's kind of my goal as far as what I'm gonna increase the honey production hives and decrease my nukes, the amount of them. I will have nukes. If I won't sell nukes, I'll probably have quite a few. I'll have 50% of my hives backed up by a nuke. So if I have dead outs, I'll have backup insurance hives. And I've always kind of did that way. I followed Michael Palmer, I don't know, 10 years ago or more. And when the idea of having a nucleus colony was something brand new, something old, but something new, and that kind of thing. So that's where I'm going to go with my stuff and all. So
well, I'm gonna go a little crazy, Charlie. I think I'm gonna try to hit that 100 mark this year. So
Wow.
yeah. So I've got
That's
some
good.
big plans this year, and I'll either crash and burn, or I'll make it. We'll see what happens.
I tell you what, it's
You
all
have-
about time management. It really is.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
well,
I've asked that question quite a bit of folks, like you say, with 100 or more hives, is how do you get through all those hives at a timely fashion?
So our yards, we have 6 different yards, and we have them split up to specific goals in each yard. So our main focus isn't honey production, right? But we have 3 yards that are our honey production yards, 2 yards that are our mating yards, and then 1 yard that's our house is like our experimental yard or our specialized yard where we'll do the cut comb, the pollen trapping, the grafting, and all that stuff. So we kind of break it down, and then one day we'll go, like one day we'll usually hit 3 yards and kind of break it up that way. And we're not like going through the entire hive either. We're looking for specific, issues or problems. And once we go through a few frames and see everything's good, then we move on to the next hive. So we're not spending, 15, 20 minutes in each hive necessarily.
Yeah. That's always kind of been my downfall, I guess, is spending too much time. Kind of depends on what you're doing at what time of the year and that kind of a thing. And in that kind of a situation.
I feel like I don't know how to do that quickly yet.
Mm-hmm.
How many hives are you running, Karen?
Oh, 12. Well, actually 13 now. We caught a little swarm. I don't know if I can count that, but I guess there's a queen, so I can count it.
You can count it. That's right.
Yeah, so not a lot. It takes a lot of time, even for just those few. And I think, it'd be nice to expand, but I don't want it to be where that takes all the time I have. So tough.
Right. I don't know. It's sometimes I find with me, I was running up until this year, like I'm doing 12 honey hives and there are 20 some nukes, and one weekend I'll take the nukes and just kind of check them out, make sure either you got to pull resources out of them so they don't swarm after, or after you do sell, let's say the queen's off, then you're either requeening or letting them self-queen. A lot of times they'll self-queen. And then you just kind of go in there and say, okay, we're looking good. And you're only in one box at the time. And then I usually stack at least one more box on top, depending if it's a deep, it's 2 deeps is what I wanted to get to. If it's a medium, I usually like to have 3 mediums as a complete nuke hive. And I run all my honey hives are pretty much all mediums, which was more of a weight issue. Of course, with my new hive lifter, I'm really considering going back to a deep box, a double deep box, since I can have something lifted for me and all that. So I might experiment with that. And
Those
all that.
lifters are really cool. I would love one of those lifters. Those are neat.
Yeah, it took me a while to decide which model I wanted, but I've used it once already where I had to move two complete hives off the racks and to replace the hive rack because it was rotten. And it was pretty much effortless, just I strapped the hives together to make sure they stayed together, and I screened them in and just went up there and picked them up and pulled them back and then laid them down on the ground and went and got the other one and just left it on the machine and did my, ripped out the other stand and put a new one in, leveled it up, make sure everything was right, and then just picked it up and put it on there, and I was done. Nice thing is you don't have to have a second person or as how it is, depending on somebody to be there and when you want to be there. And it's, well, I got to leave now because I'm running out of time and all that stuff. You don't have to worry about that. You can just do it completely yourself. Works out much better.
And I think William's right. Sometimes I self-inflict my own wounds during my beekeeping season. I do things that I didn't have to do that, and it caused a swarm because I put too much feed on, or you hear people say, well, you've got to put pollen patties on and sugar water. Well, if you're not doing splits, and you're doing that early season right now where everything's building up really strong, you're going to get a swarm if, it's going to happen really quickly to you. So William's dead on there.
Yep. It's all about your goals, right? If you're not wanting to build those bees up and split them and whatnot, so long as they have plenty of food stores in their box, like there's no reason to put liquid feed on them in the spring and feed them pollen patties. I mean, we're on our 3rd round of feeding now, and we're doing it specifically because our goals are to split bees.
Right.
So, it really just depends on what your specific goals are, how you manage your hives.
Yeah. I mean, for me, this year is the first year I ever really fed liquid and a lot of pollen patties because I've had some dead outs. I took some of my insurance hives, took advantage of rainy weather and bad weather, so they stay inside naturally, along with me actually locking them up so they don't remember where they came from. They lose their GPS system and their memory. But I'm trying to build them nukes up, make them good and strong. And as soon as the weather gets decent, I'll put them in 10 frame and that kind of thing. Like with pollen powder, I find that you actually can get pollen bound really quick by using that stuff in the frames. And patties, only in the last couple of years since Hive Life and Nobby and all that, I've been buying some of the global rocket fuel patties and been giving them a little bit of that in each of the hive. And it's so far so good. And as far as when the building, I mean, I know like Melissa there, you're looking at, okay, how many frames of brood we got? Okay, we got enough. All right, we can pull 3 frames of brood out and a couple of food and pollen frames, and now you got a new.
Yep.
And
we did yesterday.
Huh?
That's what we did yesterday.
You didn't, obviously you haven't got any queens, I don't think, at this time.
We ordered, well, we didn't order, one of our local friends here in the area had ordered a bunch of queens from Texas, some Minnesota hygienic queens, and asked if we wanted any of them. So we got about 15 from them, I think, that were mated. Hold on, time's getting nice. It's loud. So that's why we made splits the other day so we could use those queens up.
So you leave them queenless for what, a couple days at least?
No, because they're mated. So we just made the nukes yesterday and then popped the queens in. They're in cages. They're in candy cages.
Yeah,
So-
but I was just looking at where they're more acceptable, if they're queenless for a little bit of time. I've always heard that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, usually here I usually do a split and I don't really have available queens. So a lot of times they make their own cells. And but that's something else that I'm going to be doing this year is I'm going to try to introduce a lot of BSH queens or VCR queens, as Melissa I think says sometimes, and see if I can. I got a friend of mine that's got some stuff he's been getting genetics over the last 6-7 years, kind of like a Corey Stevens type situation. Does all the testing and everything, and they're hygienic and they're very. He doesn't tolerate mean bees, so they're supposed to be quite calm. And he's his areas. Of course, it depends on the area you're located in, but honey production was quite high. So I'm going to start infusing them to my hives this year and rebuilding the dead outs and things of that nature and restructuring my, for honey production, more honey production.
Do you think that he's got better genetics than you?
Yeah, I do. I had queen issues last year through the honey season. I had about 4 dead outs in my honey area. And then there's a couple dinky hives there. And, I mean, when it comes to feeding, I know what I'm doing there. I feed in the fall and they have plenty of food to get all the way through spring. When it comes to varroa mite management, I have got I think a really good system. And I treat pretty much like I tell people today, I treat 8 to 9 months out of the year, depending on weather conditions in the winter. And I've been surveyed by the National Honeybee Survey in 2022, which they're supposed to do it this year also. And I was at a 0.2 mite infestation, which is less than what they say 1% is right where you should be. Well, I was underneath of that. So that kind of shows me that my mite controls are correct. And so if I can get these hygienic bees and get really nice calm bees and something that's a good honey producer, but like I say, with honey, it also depends on weather. It also depends on location and stuff. I don't get a fall flow. A lot of people in my area, we're going to get the fall flow. And I'm like, no, you're not. I haven't. It's like, it's just not there. And that's why I feed heavily in the fall. And so I'm trying to bring in new genetics, something strong. I'm sort of like tired of the roller coaster ride. I think everybody is. Usually it's either a varroa problem or there's a starvation problem. And I know those two problems I'm on top of it when it comes to that. It's the only thing that I found with these, you got that fist-sized bees on your frame. And I'm like, they've dwindled, and I said, it's the only thing can be is queens and that kind of a thing. So the ones that did die out, they didn't have a lot of feed in them left, but they looked like they were wonderful hives for like when Ricky was up and we'd have them 60-degree days. Here, all these bees are flying. There's all this activity. Well, I believe now they were a lot of robber situations in those hives. So they sucked them dry and you had this little ball of bees and then you have the hive next door that's just going gangbusters. You got 3 boxes full of bees, and brood everywhere. So I'm looking at, these are the same locations of these. I had mated queens. I actually didn't graft them. One of my mentees had grafted them and he was going on military maneuvers. And I said, he said, here's a whole bunch of grafted queen cells. So I incubated them and put them in my hives where I needed them because I had issues. And, it also boils down to whether or not they were well nourished while they were going from the larvae stage to the, to a pupates into a full queen too. So that could have been also a big problem. One round of OA, not recommended. High bees are from
removals.
Well, when it comes to OA, there was something that I learned here about 3 years ago. I was experimenting with my mite treatment program where I would get, I would treat once or twice. I got to the point I was treating twice a week with OA for 6 to 7 consecutive weeks until the time change. And I had a major die off in my nuke yard. And I finally listened to what the science people said. And that was the best time to treat with OA is in the winter when there's 0 to almost no brood in the hive. And you'll get a 95% mite kill. And, OA is a great treatment that if you're overrun by mites, it's a good knockdown. But I found that I've used Mighty Way quick strips originally one time, and I really didn't understand how to use them, and I was kind of scared of them. And then the Forma Pro came along, and I started using that the last several years, and making sure the temperature range was below 80 or below, and the humidity was low. I think humidity plays a major part, even though it's not listed on the label. And I found that by using that with OA in the winter, with either Aprivar, I try to use some Apriguard with thymol, but it's just been too hot here when I want to use it. And I don't want to use it in the fall because I don't want to shut the queen down. So, and then having the, like I say, the National Honeybee Survey test me, and we're using 3 different products throughout. It seems to be working quite well with me. So
Charlie, let me ask you a question. I was in a gentleman's hive today, and this is the first time I've ever seen this. I actually seen 2 mites crawling around in the top of the box, and I've never seen that before. And I come over and helped him with his treatment. We did a thymol treatment on it, but I've never seen mites crawling around. Have y'all ever seen that? Does that hive need to be treated? Do you think I should do a mite wash on it for him?
I would do a mite wash.
I would check it and treat it. We've seen that before.
There was one time that I left a bee yard, and I think it was last year in the late spring, if I remember right.
No, it was last year. It was the year before.
Anyway, I'm going to go with last year. It's my story.
It was last year. It was the year before.
Hey, Karen, we do this all the time. That's just it's how we roll,
Yes.
So anyway, my version, my story last year, but regardless, it doesn't matter.
Hold on. He's going to make a long story short.
I actually found, I think it was 1 mite. So I had some tan pants that I was wearing that day. When I got back in my truck, I had one mite crawling on my pants.
We found another one too in the truck.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There's another one crawling on you.
So
that's
right.
Exactly how it goes.
Short story
Lee.
long. Hey, that's the best way to tell it, Lee. The best way to tell it. The more details, the better.
I've not seen that. I saw some spiders in there. I scared them off.
Yeah, the main thing is
they's probably eating something in there, the mites or something.
And I mean, one of the quick, easy ways is, if you get drone brood in between the frames, you break it apart. You're breaking it apart anyway, but I go through very diligently looking at all the different pupae in there to see if I see any mites in that.
Yeah,
that's where they want to go.
I saw some mites in our drone brood that was broken up when we were doing splits the other day, but they were also the mites that I saw were in BCR hives. So I wasn't super concerned about it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think a thymol treatment would be okay, Charlie? Because I know OA is not because there's already quite a bit of brood in there unless I do like 3 or 4 treatments. but they've already gotten some honey in that hive. So if I put thymol in, that honey's pretty much got to be given away. Is that correct?
Yeah, but now the honey is not in a honey super, right? It's in the brood chamber area, right?
Well, no, because he actually left a deep and a medium to overrun during winter. Now she moved up a little bit into that honey super there, but not completely. But most of the brood's in the bottom chamber. So
he's got a deep and a medium.
yes,
That's his setup.
yep.
Is he going to take and reverse that setup around? Or is he
We put a queen excluder in it so that top box that has a little bit of drone brood in it, or not drone brood, but has
brood?
regular brood in it, will actually turn into just, they'll hatch out. That'll turn into one of his regular supers.
Is it capped?
No. There was a lot of wet stuff in there. Like I was telling Tom earlier, it was just dripping everywhere.
I know. I would look and see which treatments you can use with honey on. I'm not really sure because we only use oxalic and we use Apigard, and I know
you can use Formic Pro.
Yeah, Formic Pro would do it, but that's a hard treatment.
Yeah.
And let's see, what's the temperature right now?
We're down in the 30s at night, 50s in the day, 60s.
Yeah, see, they're going to be clustering at night.
Yep.
You don't really want that with the Formic.
Have any of you guys Apitab? I think it's
I do have some Apitabs, actually, to be honest with you.
That's that's the only other thing I was going to suggest is trying those out.
I bought some, but I haven't used them yet. I'm going to use them this fall.
I'm testing those right now in the long hives.
They got thymol in them.
So maybe I could call Bob Walker and give me some of those Apitabs.
Because those are fine for any season, right?
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
Well, the main thing from what I gather is if there's a flow on, they're not going to really use them. If you feed, they won't go after them because a good portion of them are sure.
Yeah.
And along with the thymol, along with some essential oils. So, some people say to put them on now. So, I mean, they do help knock down the mites. And I don't know nothing. I've not used them. I don't know anything completely about them.
I think your best bet would probably just be to do multiple OA treatments at this point.
Well, I don't know.
That would be probably the best thing.
What's the low temperatures you're working with? Is it at least 50?
We're only getting up like maybe mid 50s, and then we're shooting down to 30s at night.
Okay, never mind then, because the Formic Pro needs to have, I think, a minimum of 50 up to 85 degrees. So I'm wondering if your efficacy being lower than the 35 is just not going to work well. You know what I'm saying? So it might be probably not an effective treatment.
Yeah, you just
if I go with OA, I need to give 3 treatments every 6 days. Is that correct?
I've heard some people say 5, and I've heard some people say 7. So I've never used it like that before in the springtime. So I can't really say for certain about it. Maybe somebody in the comments has got better experience with that. I don't want to say something that's incorrect. Yeah. But I will say this: I'm a big fan of oxalic acid. I think that it's a great tool to use. And I don't know there in South Carolina if you ever really get completely that way, but if you do multiple rounds, then again, I mean, somebody else in the comments might have a better idea. DC's B says he treats every 3 days for 3 rounds.
Okay.
I can't speak to it either direction. Steve Amo says 5 to 7. That was kind of my thought. But again, that's just what I'm thinking. I don't know that for certain, but I thought I'd heard before like 6 days. So 5 to 7 days. I mean, it'll give you a little variance, right? So sometimes you can't get back to thing every 5 days because, you've got a life to live and such. So
I've heard I think, what is it? 3 treatments every 5 days or something of that
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, Lee's there
I mean,
saying he does 5
it's a
on
good,
5.
in that situation, it's a good knockdown. But
Absolutely.
I would also go in there and do an alcohol wash to kind of see where you're at.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
You know.
agree.
That
At least then you can get an idea. That'll give you some kind of gauge, right, Ricky?
Yeah.
If you can do a wash and then kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that. I mean, you're going to have bees to spare this time of year, so
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely give that a shot and see how that turns out, because it had me really concerned after I seen it, because that's the first time I've seen mites walking around inside a hive. It's like, that's not a good sign.
well, that basically that could just be Walking Dead. You know what I'm saying? Another thing I would look for too is have him check those bees really closely and see if he sees any deformed wing virus. Check those bees and see if you see that, because that'd be an indicator of a heavy mite load too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see any mites on the bees?
I did not see any mites on the bees. That was the other thing that kind of was, interesting. I didn't see no mites on the bees. We didn't see any, wing form, deformed. Everything looked pretty good. The other thing was that was the strongest colony last year, and the weak colony that was beside of it was going gangbusters, and this colony looked like it was struggling a little bit. So it looked like something was wrong.
It's probably got a heavy viral load in there.
Yeah.
And that, and I think that was like with Corey was on my talk show Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about deformed wing virus, where there's a correlation between, with a VSH queen, if they're pulling those mite infested, larvae out of there, you're also diminishing the viral loads within your hive, which is really causing probably more havoc than what the varroa does. I mean, it's because of the varroa, and that's what I'm starting. I'm just getting into this VHS and starting to really understand. And then you're also starting to hear more about it at the, what would you call it, the mainstream beekeeping. And I think that if you have if you know that they're really VHS queens, then I think you diminish your viral loads, which in turn you're going to have a more even keel of maintaining your hives alive. And yeah, you're going to still have some dead outs, but I think that I'm hoping that's what it's going to happen when I get these queens and stuff established in my area and stuff like that. So it might take me 2 years in order to get this established where everything is VHS or VSH, whatever you want to call it. So,
Melissa says VCR, Sawmill.
Yeah, is that right? Okay.
I will say we use the VSH, or basically let's just call it a hygienic bee, right? We use the hygienic bee as just another tool. I know that is not going to be a solve all for me. So I know, we try to, utilize that term pretty frequently, but my idea in my head is if I can just help to lower my mite counts in there because they are a hygienic bee, and or maybe pull out some pupae that are in those cells that may have some problems, meaning if you have a hygienic bee, now you can, those bees may not have, maybe there's not mites down in that cell, but they might smell that some type of a stress pheromone coming out of there, right? Now, we would like to say probably most likely is probably due to a mite or a virus, right? So if they go in there and pull those out, now that hive is going to be healthier overall. So my idea behind it is not that I don't think that I can go treatment free, right? But if I can have healthier bees where I don't have to do as much of a treatment, or it's not quite as much of a harsh regimen, that's the idea that I'm working off of, So I want to point out a comment that Steve Amos put on here earlier. We talked about, did you see any mites on them? You almost, like Steve said, you're probably not going to see them on it. I mean, if you see mites walking around on it, I would kind of have concern. because most of the time they're going to be in those platelets underneath. Yeah, they're hanging on the bottom sides. So unless you're working off of a observation hive and can see their bellies, you're most likely not going to see one on there. And I mean, to be honest, they kind of blend in pretty well anyway, right? So that's why I think a mite watch is really kind of our best idea, and that just gives us an idea of where they're at. It's not a hard line. It just kind of helps us to understand a little better where we're at. So that's the idea I have behind them. I know that by having a hygienic bee, it's not a solve all. It's going to help my cause a little bit. That's all.
But I agree with your analogy about another tool in the toolbox type of thing.
Oh, definitely.
And I think if we can depress the viral loads, the mite loads, and all that, it'll kind of even our losses out, I'll say, or diminish. And that was one of the things, the guy that I'm going to get these high, I asked him about, how often you check and for mites. And he says he does along with his thing, he does white mite washes on every hive every month. And he usually the first wash is a 0 or a 1. And then he said, I always do 2 washes per hive every month. And because he's, it's like usually they're like zeros. And I'm like, okay, let's do another one, and then he might get a 0 or a 1 or a 2, and he says, okay, well, we know there's really mites in there. We his mites are his, and then he does Harbo and UBO testing and all those different things. And
does he just run one? Is he just running one stock?
As far I presume, I really don't know. He's been at it for like about 6-7 years. He said the first 3 years he thought he was just banging his head against the wall trying to develop the genetics that he wanted. And then finally, after 3 years, it started taking shape with the type of bees he wanted. Number one, he wanted gentle, non-aggressive bees. He can mow. He can, not only from what he's told me, but also other people I know that visit his yard. Says you don't barely need to wear a veil in his yard. That's how calm they are. And then he's getting 1,000 pounds or more of honey out of them. Now, of course, that could be where he's located. And it has all the traits that I'm looking for: high production honey, low mite loads, and gentleness. So, and it's 2 hours from my house, and I can decrease the stress on the bee as for me picking it up right from his yard and getting it back to my yard instead of depending on the mail service beating the bees to death.
How many are you getting? How many hives or queens?
How many hives does he run?
How many are you getting of his?
How many I got to see how many many mating boxes I can make up. I'm going to get at least 10 probably right off. I mean, I know I got 10 sales of nukes right now. So my game plan is I'm thinking to myself, well, he's going to be later in the late April by the time he gets these first grafts because of the weather situation and mating and all that kind of thing. And I'm figuring, well, mine might requeen by that time. So I might take the queens out of my mating boxes that are laying and put them in other boxes and then queen or take resources out of those boxes. Probably is what I'll do is just make all those hives resource hives and start making nukes and with brood and all that, and put his queens into them and then rebuild my apiary that way.
You might want to take and do 1 or 2 swarm boxes of his genetics to get it out into your area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I try not to let anybody swarm.
There's bees around you, and if they're bad genetics.
Last year I only had 2 swarms, and that was basically out of my nuke boxes. They got a little bit tight. And when it comes to honey boxes, I got my single brood chamber management with my modified Demery that goes along with it. And when I keep up with that, I don't have any swarms. I have high production honey and no swarms. And then
Catherine on here is mentioning Did anybody read the article on the blue-green allergy helping with the DWV? Now, I haven't read that, but I did see something really interesting yesterday. I come home, and we have an old pool that we just kind of threw up on some of our logs, and it filled up with water. And we pulled up, and I told the Ruth, I said, these bees are swarming. This is the craziest thing I've seen. They were going in where those logs were at. And I said, we've got a swarm. We got bees in them logs. And walked up there, and the pool had ripped, and it was full of water and full of this just green sludge. I have never seen so many bees go to this green slime, and they were just absolutely just hammering this spot. It looked like a regular hive. The bees were just going in around this log where this old pool had split open. I'm like, now this is just crazy. So I got a little video of it, and I hope to post that. So I don't know about the article. I haven't read that, Catherine, but there is something to this allergy or this nasty water. They're getting something out of there that they needed really bad.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. So on my back patio that I built, Melissa used to put a lot of vegetable plants back there and grow them in containers. Well, you're constantly watering, right, on a daily basis. Well, where the water would drain off the edge of the patio down a retaining wall that I built, which was only a few feet tall, it was kind of north facing. So there was a lot of like green moss growing on there. And the bees would constantly go to that to get their water source. We even had some clean water, if you will, sitting on the deck with some rock here that they could get water from. And they actually preferred the moss that where the water was kind of growing on the side of the wall.
Yep.
Preferred that much better.
Yeah, I have a neighbor up here that's got one of them little like fish ponds, they're about the size of a bathtub, and they called me up and said, well, your bees are up here. I said, what are they doing? Well, they're getting water. They had no problem with it. But I said, has it got moss on there? And he says, yeah. They're going down there and landing on that moss. Of course, they can't get drowned, but maybe there's other minerals and things of that nature there that they want.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably why sometimes you hear about bees hitting people's swimming pools in the summer. How do you get them away from it? Well, you put out a water source and it doesn't do any good. Well, there's different minerals in that chlorine that they're probably going after, right? So something that
depends on the swimming pool.
What's that, Philip?
The saltwater pools, they'll hit them for the salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you put a bag or get yourself a salt block or something like that. Knock a piece of all that off into your water. And then I don't know, it's like what was it the Fat Bee Man talked about years ago, taking so many, like 3 drops of chlorine, put it in your water, and that's sort of like the chlorine or Clorox bleach, I guess is what it was. Sort of like your chlorine in your swimming pools. And I actually have thought about that, whether or not if you could put a water out there and put some chlorine tablets in it to make it like a swimming pool.
Yeah. If you put a couple drops of chlorine in your sugar water, especially if you have the big feeders, that'll help that allergy and slime build up. Karen, do you ever see any of the bees down in your area on anything really weird?
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. A couple of my plants have mushroom compost on them. I'm growing some little cypress trees in some mushroom compost, and the bees love that. They also love my regular compost pile. And then I also have a slimy pond that they're all hanging out into. So I've seen the same thing. And I'll put I put salt water out for them too, because we have a pool down the street in my neighborhood, and I've heard that helps, and the bees seem to really like it.
How did you do that, Karen, with the salt water? Did you have something floating in there for them to land on, or what?
I just use a regular, like a jar feeder, and I just put it out in the yard, and I dissolve a teaspoon of the Himalayan pink salt in some water, and then just put that feeder out there. But I don't have a ton of hives in my yard either, so I might need to do something bigger, I guess, if you have more bees. But it seems to work for mine.
Well, you got a dozen hives. That's a fair amount of hives.
Yeah.
And all. I know down here with the mill, we have a sawdust, to be ground covered with sawdust. And then if it rains, that it's like a little ditch, and of course the water goes down into that ditch inside the sawdust pile, and of course the sawdust is moist. So I guess with the eyesight of the bee, you can see the water where we can't, and they'll land in patches of bees like that on that sawdust, suck the water out. And then what's really interesting is from where the mill is to where their hives are is like a driveway up through there. And you get the sunlight, especially in the evening when it's a little bit lower in the west, and you can see the bees actually flying through the air. As I call it, it's like all day long. If you catch the lighting just right, you'll see the tanker bees going down, get a load of water, turn around and fly back up. And they're going back, they're passing each other constantly, back and forth, grabbing water. And all. It's quite interesting.
Charlie, do you see them on a certain tree? Because I know you get all kinds of logs there. You ever see them get on a certain type of tree they prefer getting water off of, or anything like
not
that?
Really. No. The only thing else that I have around here that I know you probably don't have, I got that spotter and lanternfly that came from China.
Yeah.
And it originally came out of Pennsylvania, and it's migrated down here the last 2 years. Now, this past year was hardly. The first year it was like everywhere you looked, they would jump on you and everything else. And last year was not as bad, and they excrete basically like a sugar water fluid, and which they suck it out of the tree limbs and stuff, and they squirt it out on sides of the trees and limbs and whatever. And anyway, the bees will suck it up. And I started seeing it 2 years ago where I would put a super on for their winter feed, and that super would be filled by them, which was great. And I just leave it on there and let them have that.
Is that what they call the honeydew honey?
Honey. Yep. I leave it on there, and some people would extract it. And I've got a bottle of it here that a guy gave it to me who actually he was within 4 miles of the epicenter where that pile of rocks came that had all them eggs on there. They had some quarry up there. And it's got as Lee would say, a bold taste. And some people like it, it's a new flavor, I guess you would call it, of honey.
You might want to start bottling it. Somebody was saying it's got similar properties to that Manuka honey.
Yeah, that was Dr. She was down at Hive or Nabi this year. She's from Penn State, and they did have an experiment where the not probiotics, but antioxidants and things like that. The benchmark was always Manuka honey, and they found that the fresh lanternfly honey was actually had way more better properties than what Manuka honey had. And all that.
There's your miracle honey.
Those New Zealanders aren't going to know what to do.
So, but like I say, I leave it in the hive, and then I put my top hive feeders on. And I think a lot of times that's where people make a mistake when it comes to feeding. They feel like, well, that top super is completely full, and they don't feed. And I find that I'll put the feeders on, and they'll take another additional 5 gallons of 2 to 1 sugar water, they get through the winter and all.
Steve Amos says that was Robin Underwood. I think that
was that's correct. That's correct. Dr. Robin Underwood.
So speaking of speakers at Nabi, has anybody watched any of the videos from Nabi yet?
I have. I've watched several of them.
Well, we watched a few of them, but you can't cast them to your television, and it's driving me bananas because you have to watch them either from your tablet or from the laptop. And I want to cast it to the television so I can just sit and watch it on the television.
Mm-hmm.
So is the speakers and the videos good? Because of course I ain't got to see any of it yet. So is it pretty good stuff? Good information stuff? You guys enjoy it?
Yeah.
I think we've only watched Bob Benny's so
yeah,
far.
we only watched one. Been kind of busy. By the time my head hits a pillow, I fall asleep now. So pointless.
Yeah, I watched the one guy that's got the big honeybee supply.
Troy.
Shook.
No, Shook. Blake Shook.
Blake Shook.
Yeah.
Shook.
I guess
he was talking about nutrition. I rewatched Paul Kelly about single brood chamber thing. Actually, it was interesting where I actually sat in the talk and then I watched the video over again, and you miss things the first time around, you'll pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I took and watched one of the science guys, and but other than that, that's the only ones I've had time to really look, because you figure every one of them's at least an hour long.
Yeah.
Aaron, you get to listen to any of them yet? Have you downloaded the video? I haven't yet.
No, I haven't. I do you have to buy them or something? I did.
No, they're free.
Oh, really?
If you went to the conference, they're free, but you have to sign in and use that code like before the end of May, I think the email said.
Wow. Okay.
So
well,
otherwise,
that's really
it will
good.
expire, and then you have to buy it if you want to watch them.
Okay. Because I think last year you had to buy them all.
Yeah.
So I just.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'm not going to bash Cayman too much, but every year he says he's going to get me a video. So I guess this year's up to me to actually go and download it.
May 31st. You have till May 31st to activate your code.
So Catherine put the comment up there. It's a study done by the research.
That's really good.
Named Vince at the ARS Honeybee Lab in Baton Rouge. I think that has to do with the blue-green algae. So I didn't watch that. I have heard that before, but so anybody that was interested or wondering about, Catherine put that up there. So something to go look into anyway. And I think that was
that the one. Was that the one that Brian put up last night?
I don't recall. If he did, I didn't see it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he got that information from. I can't remember what
it was called. Scientific something other. It was a scientific forum or whatever. Is that something that that Hive Alive was? Is that what that's about?
I don't know.
No, that green algae is that spirulina.
Yeah, I think that's something.
That's right, spirulina. I knew it was something like that.
We've actually used that before when I made pollen patties before and put it in our pollen patties, but I didn't really pay attention to before.
Yeah, there was a guy on the Friday night chat. I think he's up in New Hampshire that somebody gave him like a 50-pound bag of that powder, and he mixes it in his he makes his own pollen patties. He said it made a lot of drone brood in it. I'm not sure exactly anything else about it. He seemed to like it quite a bit. And I know my friend Nancy, who gets on, she was helping out the Dirt Rooster cell and at Nobby, and also she comes on the chat, and she used to get the spirulina patties, and it seemed like you can't get them anymore. They were kind of expensive several years ago, a couple years ago at least. And she loved them. So I never, it's like I just kind of wait and see
that
what everybody else.
Spirulina powder is very fine though, and it's almost like if you've ever messed with activated charcoal before, it's like very easily to get airborne, and it's very dark green, and I think it likes to stain things, so it's not like if you're gonna
that's what the guy from New Hampshire said, that everything, your skin and everything, you become green.
It's a little bit messy.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm going to call it here tonight because I know Karen's got 3 kids with her right now, and they've either got to go to bed or haven't gone to bed, and she's got to get them to bed. But I want to say thank you for everybody that's on the live chat tonight. My guest on here, Don't forget Sawmill Charlie's is on tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And then we got Tim and Hannah on Sunday night. And somebody usually fills in on Saturday nights also. But appreciate you guys being on here tonight. It's been a great chat. Karen, you've been awesome. You've really got my mind thinking. So someone does something outside the box, can really, you might help you out. Just got to give it a chance and think about it. So we appreciate everybody tonight, and God bless.
Good
See
night.
y'all.
See you. Bye.